Hi guys, this is Zilla, and this is my video comparing the Mate 10 to the HTC U11 Plus. On the left hand side I'm recording using the selfie camera on the Huawei Mate 10. Now I'm recording using the HTC U11 Plus on the right hand side of your screen. Which one sounds better to you, and which one do you think's got the best audio and the best clarity? Let me know in the comments below. Now let's move on to the rest of the video and this long comparison. So guys, a lot of you out there can't decide between the U11 Plus and the Mate 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare both of these devices. They're both behemoths, both great devices. Bit by bit, we're going to take it step by step, and we're going to go through different factors that might help you make a decision. So let's start off with the build. So with the Mate 10, the Huawei Mate 10, it's 150.5 by 77.8 by 8.2 millimeters in size, and it weighs 186 grams. The U11 Plus, on the other hand, is 158.5 in height by 74.9 millimeters in width, and it's 8.5 millimeters thick. So what does that tell you? Well, the Mate 10 is considerably shorter than the U11 Plus. I'll show you that there. We're talking around 8 millimeters in height difference, but then the Mate 10 is considerably wider by around 3 millimeters, between 3 and 4 millimeters wider than the U11 Plus. The U11 Plus is slightly thicker by 0.3 of a millimeter, so that's really nothing. The Mate 10 is 186 grams, the U11 Plus is 188 grams. Weight-wise, you're not going to feel a huge difference. What I would say is the Mate 10 feels more balanced in hand when you're holding it. It's probably because it's a shorter device and wider, so it's not so top heavy when you're holding it in hand. Whereas because of the 18:9 aspect ratio on the U11 Plus, it can get a little bit top heavy sometimes and feel a little bit tilty, but it's not too bad. They're both made of glass, front and back obviously. Very beautiful devices. I can't decide between the two which one I prefer the look of. That's subjective, so that is a decision only you guys can make look-wise. Another difference in build, the U11 Plus has got the fingerprint sensor on the back, whereas the Mate 10 has it on the front. So let's test the fingerprint sensor speed on both devices. 3, 2, 1. Which one do you think was faster? Let's try it again. 3, 2, 1. Very difficult to really work out. Let me do it one more time facing myself. So 3, 2, 1. Very similar in speed. And one more time. I personally think the Mate 10 in everyday use is a little bit faster, but it's very negligible. You're not going to notice, to be honest. So don't base your purchase on which is a faster fingerprint sensor. Base it on which one you prefer. Do you prefer it on the back or do you prefer it on the front? Now let's move on to the actual other parts of the build quality. The Mate 10 is IP53 dust and splash protected, whereas the U11 Plus is water and dust resistant at IP68. So that's a win for the U11 Plus. Now there is a Mate 10 Pro, which has got a 1080p screen, but that's also, I believe, IP68 or IP67 water and dust resistant. So if that's something that's very important to you, you might want to consider the Mate 10 Pro. So in terms of build quality, I personally find they're both excellently built. I mean, I can't pick between the two, to be honest. I really can't. Let's now move on to the batteries. So that's a big one. That's something a lot of you have been asking me. On the Mate 10, we're talking a 4000 milliamp hour battery, and on the U11 Plus, we're talking a 3930 milliamp hour battery. Charging time on the U11 Plus is around 1 hour 50 minutes. That's 0 to 100%. On the Mate 10 though, it's a lot faster because they've got their Mate 10 Supercharge, or whatever they call it. And that charges from 0 to 100 in 1 hour 15 minutes, and I've tested them both several times. So again, the Mate 10 wins it on that respect. So it depends. If you need a phone that charges extremely fast, you want to go with the Mate 10. Okay, it's considerably faster at charging. Battery stamina and so on, they're both extremely good. I both get over 10 hours screen on time from both devices. I keep saying both for some crazy reason. I think the overall, on a day-to-day basis, the Mate 10 is slightly better in standby mode, and it's slightly better on screen on time. It really depends on the situation. It depends on how often you're using Wi-Fi on the devices. It depends on how good your reception is. It depends on which carrier you're using. So there's a lot of different things in there. So I can only give you the feedback I'm finding from the way I use the devices. So take from that what you will. I mean, they're both dual SIM compatible. They can both be expanded with a microSD card, which I like. So that's another thing that they're tied on. Battery wise, I think the Mate 10 just pips the U11 Plus in the battery department, but only by a little bit. So it's entirely up to you. Pricing. Now, I'll leave links in the description below where I picked these both up from. Use those links. The U11 Plus, I picked it up for around £620, I believe. And the Mate 10 was around the same price. The price does fluctuate. This tends to be a little bit more expensive from what I've seen, the Mate 10. But take that with a pinch of salt, because it depends when you watch this video. So price, I wouldn't think is really a consideration. They're both in the sort of £600 to £700 price bracket. It depends on where you buy it from. So price wise, I think it's a tie there, personally. And also, let's talk about the colors. This is only available in a black, a silver, and a sort of translucent black. Whereas the Mate 10 is available in mocha, a very nice grey color, a blue, a pink, and a gold, from what I've seen. So there's a much more wider color options with the Mate 10 than there is with the U11 Plus. Now let's move on to speakers. That's another big thing. They're both dual speakers. They've both got bottom firing speakers here, and they both got speakers in the earpieces. Now this is a difficult one because it depends on your taste and what you like in sound quality. Now what I found is on the Mate 10, the speaker at the bottom is louder than the speaker at the bottom of the U11 Plus. But on the U11 Plus, the speaker at the top is louder than the speaker on the Mate 10. So it's kind of a toss-up. I'd say the U11 Plus gives you a more sort of rounded sound quality from the speakers. So the HTC U11, I would say, the Plus, sorry, is not as treble heavy as, say, the U11, which I've shown on my U11 Plus versus U11 video. I'll leave a link at the end of this so you can check that out. But I think it gives a better bass sound than the Mate 10 personally. The Mate 10 sounds a little bit tinier. It's still exceptionally good, but it sounds a little bit tinier to my ears than the U11 Plus. This has a bit more bass to it. But overall as a package, they're both extremely loud. I've done a speaker test on both of them. Again, I'll leave a link at the end of the video for that. So it depends on what you like from your sound. Now what I'll do is I'm going to drop in a sound comparison clip here, so check that out for yourselves and let me know which sound you prefer. Now let's move on to the actual headphones output. Now with the Mate 10 we have the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Unfortunately on the U11 Plus there's no headphone jack. You've got to use the dongle that comes supplied in the box. Now again, this is a very difficult one for me. Let me just give you some sort of facts and figures that are bandied by the manufacturers. The headphone output on the Mate 10 is 32-bit 384 kilohertz audio output from here. Whereas from the U11 Plus, it is a 24-bit 192 kilohertz output via the dongle. Now, the Mate 10 has a DAC built into the actual device, whereas the U11 Plus has the DAC built into the dongle. Now, if you use in-ear headphones, smaller in-ear headphones, I would say the headphones that are supplied with the U11 Plus sound better than the U11 Plus, better than the Mate 10 headphone output if you're using smaller headphones. If you're using over-the-ear or on-ears, I personally, and this is just me again, think this sounds better than Mate 10 because at 32-bit audio output, it just sounds better to my ears personally. And I prefer having the 3.5mm headphone jack. Again, it's just personal preference to me. Loudness-wise, I would say they're about the same when it comes to headphone output. Neither of them are really beating the LG V30 at this point, but that's a different kettle of fish. But they're both extremely good, and I think it boils down to this. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the 3.5mm, or do you prefer using a dongle, or you don't mind? That is what your decision should be based on. In terms of the sound quality, it really depends on the quality of the recordings you're listening to, and it depends on the quality of the headphones you're using. So it's a really difficult one to gauge with you guys out there. Overall, personally, I would give it to the Mate 10, but that's because I use audiophile headphones. Now, neither phone will drive something like a Sennheiser HD 600 headphone, which is a 300 ohm resistance or impedance headphone. Only the V30 can drive something of that level, but they'll both drive low impedance headphones with no issue whatsoever. I would say the Mate 10 does go a bit louder than the U11 Plus. Shoot me if you find any your experience is different, but it depends on the headphones you're using, etc. So that's my take on the headphone output. While we're talking about headphone output, the U11 Plus comes with Bluetooth 5.0 and the Mate 10 comes with Bluetooth 4.2. So it's a little bit outdated, the Bluetooth technology in here, but on a day-to-day basis, I don't think anyone's really going to notice a huge difference. Now, another big obvious difference between the U11 Plus and the Mate 10 is the Mate 10 screen is a 5.9 inch 16 by 9 aspect ratio. It's a 1440 by 2560 screen with 499 ppi. The U11 Plus, on the other hand, is a 6-inch diagonal screen, 18 by 9 aspect ratio, so it's a more modern style of screen, with 1440 by 2880, and this has a higher PPI of 538 versus 499. Now, in my experience of usage, I would say definitely the Mate 10 goes brighter than the U11 Plus, but I think the colors look more natural on the U11 Plus, and I think that's because HTC made this to be the Pixel 2 XL, so the screen is more color calibrated than the Mate 10 screen. But as I said, the Mate 10 screen is brighter. I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to put both the devices on a test, run this color test through both, and you can see for yourself which one you think is better. I'll switch off auto brightness, I'll switch off night mode, and I'll put both screens at full brightness. And you let me know in the comments down below which one you prefer. So, which screen in your opinion is better, brighter, more color accurate? Let me know in the comments below. With both devices now, they both run different chipsets. The Mate 10 runs a Kirin 970. This particular model I have here has got 128 gigs of built-in storage, plus that's expandable with a microSD card. And it's also got 6 gigabytes of RAM built in as well. Now my U11 Plus, that has a Snapdragon 835 chipset built into it, with 6 gigs of RAM as well. Now performance wise, they're both very fluent, very fast. I don't find much of a difference in speed. I personally think when people do speed tests between two devices, it's kind of almost like a pointless exercise. Because are you really going to pick a device because, say, it can open Facebook 0.001 of a second faster than the other? No, you're not. So both are very snappy, both are very fast and efficient performers. So that's a tie for me. Out the box, I need to mention this as well. They both come with cases. I didn't mention that before. But the Mate 10 case I think is better because it's a TPU case. It's a free case. I don't really like the U11 Plus case because it's hard plastic. The Mate 10 also comes with a screen protector pre-applied, whereas the U11 Plus doesn't. I'm using the Brotec screen protector on here, which is okay, but it doesn't cover the whole screen, so that's an annoyance. Both the screens are very flat indeed. There isn't hardly any curve on the actual screen. I don't know if you're going to pick that up at all. Probably not. But they're virtually flat on both devices. Nothing like the Samsung devices out there. Comfort in hand using them. Let me talk about that. For me, the Mate 10 feels more comfortable because I've got bigger hands and it's a wider device, so I get less pain in my fingers when I'm using this for long periods of time. They weigh about the same, so the weight's not really an issue. But I would say if you've got smaller hands, the U11 Plus will be easier for you to handle because it's narrower. But it is also a bit more top heavy, as you can see. It wants to topple out of your hand a little bit. So that again is a personal thing. Personally, I find the Mate 10 more comfortable to hold, but I find the U11 Plus easier to hold. Sounds like an oxymoron, but I'm just being honest with you guys. And while we're talking about the phones, I'm not sure what Gorilla Glass is used on the Mate 10. So if any one of you, because I'm hearing different things from different people. Some are saying it's Gorilla Glass 5, some are saying it's not. I don't know. I don't want to give you the wrong information. But I have dropped both devices without cases, both of them. And they both slipped off my desk. They're both very slippery. I'd say the U11 Plus is more slippery in hand than the Mate 10. Both fell exactly the same distance. Both hit the floor on their corners. Both phones bounced. And neither phone has a dent, nick, scratch, scuff, nothing on them. So they're both, I would say, equal in terms of durability at this stage. Both accidental drop tests. But I would say the U11 Plus is more slippery than the Mate 10. I don't know why. The Mate 10 just feels a little bit more easier to hold onto in hand. Especially if you've got cold hands or you've just washed your hands. It just feels, I suppose because it could be because of it's not as top heavy. That could be the reason, I don't know. I really don't know. Another thing I've got to mention is there's an IR blaster that comes with the Mate 10. There isn't one on the U11 Plus. Let's talk about features. Now, both devices have got a lot of software features built into them. One thing the U11 Plus has got is the squeeze function, which I really like. Works great for me. And it has that scroll wheel that comes out, which is a great addition. There is nothing like that on the Mate 10, but then the Mate 10 does have, you can draw with your knuckle a letter C to open a camera, M to open your music. There's a lot of shortcuts that can be launched from the Mate 10. The U11 Plus does have other features as well, similar to the Mate 10, but not as many. But there are some different features. So you can double tap the screen to switch it off, double tap it to switch it on, which is, they're nice additions. But one thing I love that the U11 Plus has got, it's got an always on display, whereas the Mate 10 doesn't have that. So again, it depends on, do you need the always on display or don't you? That's another thing to consider when you're buying both devices. Now let's talk about cameras. That's another big thing for everyone out there. Which one's better? I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to play some camera footage between both devices. You let me know in the comments below which cameras you prefer, which one has the better sound, and you decide which ones you think is the better camera. Personally, I think the Mate 10 takes it for me, but not by much, simply because it's a more versatile camera. It's got the dual lens. The bokeh is exceptional on this phone. I mean, it's really good. I think it's better than the Pixel bokeh. But I'll put up some shots now with the back cameras and some selfie footage, not too many, and you let me know what you think in the comments below. So guys, which one did you think was the better cameras? The Mate 10 or the U11 Plus? Let me know in the comments below. Now I'm just looking down at the actual specs of the cameras because I don't want to mislead anyone here. I want to get it spot on. On the Mate 10, it's a dual 12 megapixel camera. Oh, sorry. It's a dual camera setup. One's a 12 megapixel at f1.6 with OIS, and it's got a 20 megapixel f1.6 2x lossless zoom lens as well. Leica branded optics, which are really great optics or lens manufacturer. It's got phase detection, laser autofocus, dual LED, dual tone flash. It's got geotagging, dual touch focus, face stroke smile detection, panorama, HDR, etc. It can record in 4K as well, but it doesn't have OIS when you're recording in 4K. It can do 2160p at 30 frames per second, and it can also do 1080p at 30 or 60 frames per second. And the front-facing camera is an 8 megapixel f2.0. That's the specs of the Mate 10 camera. The specs of the U11 Plus now. It's a single 12 megapixel with f1.7 aperture on the back. It's a dual pixel PDAF lens, if that means anything to you guys. Phase detection, autofocus, OIS, dual LED, and dual tone flash. It can record at 2160p at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 30, 60 or 120 frames per second and it's got HDR. It's got 24-bit 192 kilohertz stereo recording sound. The front camera is 8 megapixels with an f2.0 with 1080p video recording capabilities, HDR and panorama. Sound quality in the video recording, I'll give it to the U11 Plus definitely, because it's got the sound focus function built in. Night shots, I'd say they're very close to each other. But which one do you think is better? Let me know in the comments below, guys. So let's talk about the final thing here, the actual operating system and the skins on top of both devices. On the Mate 10, we have EMUI 8.0, and on the U11 Plus we have HTC Sense. Most people will agree with me on this. I prefer HTC Sense to EMUI 8.0. I still think this is a great skin, but I just prefer Sense personally. Both are great skins, both are very fluid, both work extremely fast. It's just, I feel that the HTC Sense gives a more cleaner experience. I still think Huawei have got a little bit to go with EMUI which it's not that bad at all now, but it's still lacking a little something in my opinion. Just a little something. I mean, with this particular phone, with the fingerprint sensor, I'll show you what you can do with it and give you another sort of idea. You can wake up the screen with it, you can swipe on it to bring up your multitask window. If you press and hold, it takes you back to home. If you tap it singly, it goes back to what the previous screen. So you can pretty much control everything from one button here. Or you can have on-screen buttons, back, home, and multitask if you want to use this just as a fingerprint sensor. Now on the HTC U11 Plus, the fingerprint sensor is just that, it is just a fingerprint sensor. There's no swipe options on it, nothing that I've seen so far. But the on-screen buttons are much better on this. You've got much more options. If you've seen my other previous videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can also swipe across to bring up another set of buttons, which I really love. And also on Sense, you can swipe up on the screen to bring up your apps, your app tray, and go through it, or you can swipe down like that to close it again. You can swipe down on the screen to bring down your notification shade and bring it down further still, which is something I really like. It makes one-handed use much easier, especially with an 18:9 aspect ratio. On the on the Mate 10, you don't have the swipe down option. When you do, but it brings up this suggestions thing, which is not something I'm really into personally. It's not something I like. And you can't swipe up on the screen to bring up the app tray. You have to click on a button to bring it up. So for me personally, HTC Sense feels a lot more intuitive to use. It's got more features that I would use really. The knuckle gestures on this, I wouldn't particularly use them. I mean, I haven't got a lot of them set up where you can draw a C and stuff like that. I don't personally use them. So for me, a win goes to HTC U11 Plus with Sense. So let me just sum up now to help you guys decide. Let's recap. Mate 10, HTC U11 Plus, both excellent build quality, no issues or complaints there. I would say the Mate 10 is more comfortable to hold, but the U11 Plus is easier to hold. Screen wise, do you go with the 18:9 aspect ratio, or do you go with the traditional 16:9 aspect ratio? The bezels on this are extremely thin, and kudos to Huawei for producing a 16:9 aspect ratio with such small bezels on the front. In fact, they both got, I would say the bezels are slightly smaller on the Mate 10 than on the U11 Plus. While we're on the subject of screens, the colors are more accurate on the U11 Plus, but the Mate 10 screen is definitely brighter, but less calibrated. The fingerprint sensors, obviously this you've got it on the back, this one you've got it on the front. So that's something you need to consider in your purchase. Which do you prefer? Having on the front is easier if you have it sitting on a desk to get into your device. Having it on the back, you have to pick it up, click it to get into it and so on. The U11 Plus has got IP68 water and dust resistance, where the Mate 10 is only IP53. So that's a win for the U11 Plus there. Battery wise, I'm not going to pick between the two. If anything, the Mate 10 is slightly better, but not massively better than the U11 Plus. It's too small to consider, make a purchase choice on battery, in my opinion. Processor wise, both equally as fast. There's no slowdown, there's no hiccups. That's a draw. Speaker wise, I actually prefer the speakers on the U11 Plus because they're better quality sounding than the Mate 10. But headphones, again, that's subjective. If you're going to use HTC's own sonic headphones, then this will sound better from the USB-C port. Whereas if this has got a headphone jack, so personally for me, if you're going to use really high quality over-ear headphones, the Mate 10 wins it. If you're going to use in-ear headphones or USB Type-C headphones, then the U11 Plus wins it. But I'd say it's pretty much even in the headphone department. It depends on what your preference is. Speakers, as we've covered that already. Just looking at my list down here in case you're wondering what I'm doing. Bluetooth, I'm not bothered by Bluetooth. I'm not going to get into that. The U11 Plus wins it because it's got Bluetooth 5.0, where this is still stuck on 4.2. So if you're really into that, U11 Plus all the way. Durability, they're both about the same. Features wise, I'd say it's a draw. It depends on which features you prefer. But you have got the IR blast on here, where you don't with the U11 Plus. But you have got squeeze functionality, so that's a trade-off. Then you have got certain swipe gestures that this doesn't have. You've got certain knock features and knuckle gestures that this one doesn't have. It depends on which features you prefer. So I want to say it's a draw. But for me, I personally use the features on the U11 Plus more, especially with the always on display, the squeeze functionality, the scroll wheel. They're more useful for me than drawing a C and whatever. So I'd say for me personally, the U11 Plus wins it on features, software features, than the Mate 10. Let's move on to cameras now and close off. I prefer, but only slightly, the cameras on the Mate 10, simply because you've got the dual sensors, you've got the bokeh effect. You can do more with these cameras than you can with the single camera on the U11 Plus. So for me, I would say the Mate 10 takes it in the camera department the way I use it. If you disagree, let me know in the comments below. Me personally, if I really had to pick one out of the U11 Plus and the Mate 10, if I really had to do it, which would I pick? Oh, that's a difficult one. I would probably go with the Mate 10 personally. But that's not to say I'm right, it's not to say I'm wrong. It simply means that's what I would prefer. I prefer the fingerprint sensor on the front. I prefer the cameras with the dual cameras. I like bokeh, something I like using. The camera app's also got more features, personally for me, what I use. It's got 3.5mm headphone jack. The battery's slightly better. It's a wider phone, so it feels more comfortable in my hand, for me. That's predominantly the reason I'd pick, and it's more screen viewable, or viewable screen. I don't know how you want to say it. Because it's a 16:9 and it's virtually 6 inches diagonally, you get more screen real estate. But it's a very hard decision, guys. It really is. So let me know in the comments below, which one do you prefer? Which one are you thinking of buying? What are your main factors for choosing one over the other? This is Zilla saying thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you all again real soon. Peace.